wanted to introduce Thell Robinson. Thell is founder and CEO of A Thug is a Dud. That's a nonprofit organization based here in Central Ohio. And I met Thell last year. I was immediately intrigued with his inspiring personal story, as well as the mission he's been pursuing in our local community. And much like our Rotarians, I've found that Thell is passionate about service above self. He serves a vulnerable segment of our community that desperately needs our help, but unfortunately is often overlooked by the mainstream community. Thell's personal transformation is nothing short of amazing. He beat the odds and surely would not be with us today if he had not. He's living proof that it can be done, which means he's a perfect person to serve as an example for the kids and the young adults that he unselfishly serves each and every day. From my observation, he's in a very good place now and is changing the lives of those whose shoes he once walked. With that, let's hear Thell's story in his own words. Thell, let's start at the beginning. Tell us where you were born, about your family, and your neighborhood.
I was born in Fort Meade, Maryland. My father was in the Army, and my mom worked for the government, and I had a brother that was a year younger than me. And so my parents split when I was 4 years old, and so my mom and my brother moved from South Carolina back to Maryland to live with my grandmother. And the neighborhood was nice. We lived across from the mall, and we used to go visit the mall every day. And we had my great uncle that lived next door to us, and we had some neighbors that lived in back of us and some neighbors that lived in front. So it was a nice community, and we just had fun.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and move into the preteen years, moving kind of quickly through your life here. How did things go in elementary school, academically and personally? And perhaps touch on some of the good and the not so good influences during this time, and what was your self-image at this time?
I went to Rolling Nose Elementary from kindergarten to third grade, which was around the corner from my grandmother. And then we transferred from Rolling Nose to Parole Elementary, because that's where my mom got her own place at Woodside Gardens, which is better known as 20. And that was a low-income area in Maryland. And but to keep us out of trouble, she took us to like Iverson Mall, Forestville Mall, Landover Mall, had us doing things on the weekends and stuff like that. And then third grade and fourth grade summer, me and my brother went to Illinois and Iowa, where my father was stationed at, and he installed in the values of cutting grass and washing our cars, waxing them. So, you know, people that know me to see a clean car, that's where I get it from, my father.
Could we make a suggestion?
Yes.
Talk into the mic, would you, instead of the camera?
Okay, okay.
I have trouble understanding.
Okay.
Thank you. So I think, from what I'm hearing so far anyway, this appears to be fairly normal childhood.
Correct.
Well, let's talk about the high school years. Where did you attend? And share a little bit about your academics, your activities, your influencers during these years, and what was your self-image? We'd be interested in knowing how you saw yourself, and what did others think of you? What do you believe others thought of you?
I went to Annapolis High School, that's in Maryland. I wrestled in high school, but my record wasn't good. And then I was into the ladies, so I wasn't. I was just a cool person. I wasn't into that beef or nothing like that. A year, after I graduated high school, I went to Fleet Business School because my firstborn was born in July after I graduated high school. So I wanted to be productive for her, and that's what I did. And that's all I did. Yeah.
What was your self-image at this point, and how do you think others saw you during your high school years?
Just a laid-back person, just into the females. I worked since age 14. My first restaurant job was Amigos. So I kept a job from age 14 to 18. My mother wouldn't have that. So even though we stayed in the community, we could go to the mall, we can go to the Go-Go's, which is live music that DC created, and just have fun. But as far as hustling or anything like that, no. So she was very strict. Me and my brother got beaten, so she kept us in line. And the route that I chose once my daughter was born was a consequence on me, not her, my mom. So when my checks was going to my daughter, as far as clothes and Pampers and stuff, and I had no money for me, that's when I began to sell weed and then eventually selling crack.
And that was occurring when you were in high school?
No, after high school.
After high school. Okay. So after high school, you said that's when some of the issues started to creep into your life in terms of the drugs.
Correct.
Tell us about some of the unfortunate choices you made, which ultimately led you down the path to what I suspect was the lowest point in your life, and that was your incarceration.
So October 1991, I got kicked out of Fleet Business School for cheating off somebody on a term paper, and I could have got back in if I appealed it, but because I was selling weed, I just said whatever. And then at the time, I had a roommate living across from where I was attending school, and at the age of 19, I had 2 females pregnant at the same time, and so I asked the female that wasn't my firstborn mom to abort the baby, and that's how I got back with my firstborn mom. And so at that age of 19, with another baby on the way, and DC was murder capital, and I wanted to do right by myself as well as my 2 kids, I wanted to go to Atlanta to DeVry, but they didn't have no opening, so then I went to Columbus, and that's how I ended up here. And a year after being here at DeVry for studying accounting, my child mom got pregnant again, but she was taking a shot, so it ain't like we was irresponsible, but it just happened. And so after a year of being in school, and then she was pregnant again, I just quit school and brought that mentality up here, selling crack on the south side, and then eventually to Linden community.
What specifically resulted in your prison time? And then also, give us a glimpse of your time in prison. I mean, obviously, that's a bit of a foreign concept to us here, but we'd be interested in knowing your perspectives on your time in prison. What do you remember most from that experience?
I went to prison for voluntary manslaughter, aggravated robbery, and a gun spec. Someone shot somebody in my car, and because the way the law is stated, when you're with someone and they commit a felony, you're gonna get charged the same as if you did it. So I took a lie detector test, and the judge saw that I wasn't a shooter, and that's how I ended up with the sentence that I got. During that time of incarceration, I realized that I let my children down because I love the streets more than them. And even though I loved them, but I didn't love them enough to put down the lifestyle as a drug dealer. And so I realized that I was a deadbeat dad for not being there for them. And then I realized me and my aunt got closer because my mom is a woman of God, and so because I chose that Satan route, you know, she let me go because that's the lifestyle I chose. So that's how me and my aunt bonded, and you know, she looked out for me while I was incarcerated, getting me clothes boxes, talking to me on the phone, prayers, visiting, stuff like that. And my mom did that as well, but you know, I laid my bed in it, so I had to do it. And then I realized the power of a relationship with a female, because during 7 years, it was only communication with a female. And a pastor once told me back in '93, communication is the key to a relationship. But at the age of 21, I was just like, whatever. I'm thinking sex was. But during that time incarcerated, we just had communication. So I realized the power of communication with a female, and it was just, real.
I think, testing. I'm just going to shout out. I think that we can see a transformation starting here, but can you talk specifically about what led to your transformation? I mean, did a light go on one day? Was it over time while you were in prison? Something changed your life. What was that?
It was God. So after my 7 years, I was out 7 months, and I was trying to get legit. I wasn't being violent, and my past came up and caught up with me, but instead of handling it my way, I caught a gun case, and it was a state case, but the feds picked it up. And so when I called my mother after I bonded out, I asked her, why am I still in here? She said, you had a Fed detainer. And so she said, this is a test of your faith. My cousin said the same thing. And so once I lost that trial with the feds, I was discombobulated. So I go to the chaplain, put some answers, and I tell him what happened. He said, this is a test of your faith. And I said, man, you're the third person that said that to me. And he said, 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1, I will come in 2 or 3 to establish my word. And he pointed to Jeremiah 1, verse 8, and said, don't be afraid. And he told me to read the book of Jeremiah, and all the answers that I have with the questions that's boggling my head will be answered. So that's when my journey began. And while I was incarcerated in the feds for 6 years and 10 months, I did Bible study 3 nights out of the week, prayer every night, and did violence intervention in the compound and on the unit. And so I earned my associate's degree in theology, and then once released, I earned my bachelor's degree in theology.
When you left prison, what was your next step? What did you do immediately upon leaving prison? And how long after that was it that you founded A Thug is a Dud?
Well, I wrote my book I published, Going Hard, while I was incarcerated. My aunt supported me in getting that published. And I also wrote 7-Year Bid and Test of My Faith, which is the series. So I worked when I got out, Family Dollar from June 9th to July 12th, but I got fired because of my background. And then my case manager at the halfway house got me a job at this pallet depot, flipping 40-pound pallets all day long for 3 months, but my body couldn't take it, so I quit there and went to the GAT. Then from the GAT, I started volunteering with this nonprofit, mentoring youth and stuff like that. And then I got a break. I started working with the city program, which is the apps, and I did that for 2 years. But I know Columbus needed something more, and Columbus has a huge problem, with violence in the community. Columbus is third in human trafficking, and so that's why I founded, A Thug is a Dud nonprofit, because sometimes you have to go outside the lines and help in the community, because there's no room for bureaucracy, politics, or red tape when it comes to these youth out in the community. So that's why I founded A Thug is a Dud.
Yeah, I think we're hearing, we just heard something that many of us might not know, and that is that our community, Columbus, is third in human trafficking. Certainly in my discussions, my conversations with Thell over the last year, from time to time, I've heard so many things that are shocking to me, things that are going on in our community, in the inner city and also the suburbs, that I never realized. And it's a real eye-opener, and it really speaks loudly to the work that Thell is doing and that his organization is doing. So that's probably one of the most important things we can talk about today, is the work of A Thug is a Dud. And So that, if you can just kind of talk some more about the organization, what you're doing, how you're making an impact in the community, and also, maybe touch on the books you've written, because I know that they are part of your mission.
Okay. So the main focus of the agency is violence intervention. So when we know of teens and young adults and adults that are involved in a fight, shooting, and homicide, we're trying to prevent the next fight, shooting, and homicide. Columbus is 7th in violence in the United States, or it was, and right now it's at 90 homicides, and it's way above normal. And so as the homicides rates go up, the answer for the city is police, 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 police. And not taking away from the police, but police can't solve everything. It has to be preventative measures in place that can help these teens and young adults. You need individuals like me and the people that we got at this agency to be able to meet with these shooters, these gang members, these drug dealers, and see if things can be worked out before the police is called to address the yellow tape. And if we don't get a wrap on this, Columbus can turn into a Baltimore, Chicago, or New York. The reason why I'm still here is because it's nice and it's affordable, but it has to be taken seriously, because when we have events like the Red, White, and Boom and the fair, the state fair, it's not even safe because of the violence that's going on in these places that people don't even like to visit because they're scared that they're going to get a bullet or something like that. So you need prevention when it comes to the urban communities. And then with the heroin epidemic, with the violence in the community, they look like me. But on the west side, when it comes to the heroin epidemic, it look like y'all. So it's a humanity thing. We need to work together, because we did workshops in Dublin, Upper Arlington, and Hilliard on drug awareness, to connect people with the proper resources to get the help, because that heroin is a true monster. It is.
I think sometimes we don't realize, the impact in some of the suburban communities. We think this is all limited to maybe the inner city, but certainly, I know that it is impacting the suburban communities as well. I think you've somewhat done this already, but what messages do you have for us, and what are the most important things you think we should remember about your life and your current work with youth, and how we can help?
I just want y'all to realize the awareness that's going on in Columbus. I know some of you might not live in Columbus and don't know what's going on in urban communities, and that's fine. But Columbus has a huge problem going on with violence, and then the heroin epidemic. And then, we welcome all support, because this is a huge, huge mission that we're taking on out here. And we're not saying that we're a one-stop shop. We're collaborative with other agencies that are willing to, that's in our alignment, but this is a huge problem in Columbus. And I want y'all to know that change is possible. I'm living proof. I'm 44 years old. I survived 7 years state time up here in Ohio. I survived 6 years and 10 months in the federal system, and I've been out of the system for 6 years. And so when I engage with these teens and young adults or adults, they can't tell me it can't be done, because I'm living proof. I'm a walking testimony. They can tell somebody that don't know, but I'm walking in it. And so the work that I do with these youth in the community is important and it's needed. And so I just thank you all for this opportunity to share my story, but I just want y'all to walk away with the awareness of what's going on in Columbus, Ohio.
Pretty sure that this discussion will generate some questions. So what I'm going to do is actually come around with the mic. If you can stand, if you have a question, I will be right there.
So the question I have, you got into trouble, you said, when you were around 19 and 20 and early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So looking back on that time period, you were obviously influenced to become who you are now. But at 19 and 20, the average person who's getting in trouble, it appears that they don't seem to listen, or that they are, even if they're not getting in trouble. I know 19 and 20-year-old kids that are like, I know more than you, mom and dad. Right? Am I correct on that? So how do you get through when at that maturity that they already know everything? What was different, or what would you propose to do and talk to them in the way to say, look, I'm 44 and now look how I've done, I'm successful at this. You can have this too. But at 19 and 20, 21, they're not listening because they already know. How do you speak to that?
So, I mean, I'm dressed right now like this because this is my uniform for this attire. But when I'm in the community, I'm tatted up, I let my locks down, and I dress according to how they dress. And because of my first book, Going Hard, everything that they aspire to live like in the community, I live that life. I live that life that rappers talked about. So when I speak wrong and uncut to them, and they relate to it. And I done help plenty of youth out in dire situations, you know, that I came and speak on. So last year, with my agency, we did 52 conflict mediations that prevented fight shootings and homicides. 52. That could have been 52 homicides added to Columbus count. You know, so the work is sustainable, and it's working. Plenty of parents, plenty of youth, young adults thank us all the time for what we do. But if we had more, we could do more. But we only can do with what we got. So you need people that can relate to these teens and young adults. So if you don't have nobody be able to relate to them, then you're going to run into that problem to where as though they're not going to listen to you and respect you. But when you got individuals that can relate to them and that are no longer in it, because you can't be a hypocrite, and then they're going to listen to you. And do it happen just like that? No. It's a process. So like when we do get a youth, we monitor them for like 6 months. We're going to engage them one time a week, or it depends on the activity of that participant, sometimes twice and 3 times a week. But we're not going to give up. That's what we do. You're welcome.
Again, thank you very much. This is not an easy thing for you to do, I'm sure, but certainly has a great impact. Do you have anything structurally set up so that other folks who may have gone through the same road, had the same change of heart in prison, when they come out, want to do the same kind of support for the community to try to change people's minds, and in fact be able to stand there and tell them, the kids, eye to eye, I've been there before, this isn't a good path, so that you can build some folks on your side and in your organization that will be able to carry the message forward?
Yes, we do. We have a few volunteers, and that's what's special about this agency. We hand select individuals that got backgrounds like me, and you know, different backgrounds, but that are serious though. So we need their credibility, but they have to be out of the streets. They can't be doing the work and then got a foot in the streets, because it's hard enough to get at the table to, you know, be able to do more. But it's those type of individuals that saying they're doing what we do, but then got one foot in. You can't do that.
I have a 3-part question, and you can take it in any order you want.
Okay.
The best surprise you've had about something worked, the worst disappointment you've had about something you thought would work that didn't, and if you could have one wish out loud for us.
To the middle question, June 30th of last year, I got a call saying one of my clients got killed by the Columbus Police Department. Kwame Patrick. He had his shirt off, he was on the ground, and 2 officers shot him. And so I never been speechless when it came to engaging with a parent, sibling, or anything. And at that moment, there's nothing I could do. You know, I can't bring her son back. You know, we got a huge problem in the United States right now with police shooting African American males, so it was nothing I could say. And to the situation to where he said something that worked, that surprised me. I had mediated a situation with a East Haven crew and a Northside crew. And we got them together, you know, and we found out what was the situation that led up to the altercation. And it was surprising because they agreed to meet so soon because they just buried this individual like a week ago or probably 2 weeks ago. And it's rare that you can get a conflict mediation set up like that that quickly. But these young men knew what I was trying to do, and because I'm not from here, they agreed to meet because they know what I was on. And so here it is, you know, you got East Haven, which is the far east side, and then up north side, and they agreed to meet. And so they were able to have their voices heard, because each time they would meet, it would be fighting, shootings, and then in that case, it was a homicide. And so to actually find out what the issue was about, and then, you know, learn from it, and then to have a team of young men keeping that fire out for a minute, you know, it was, that fire was put out for like a year. And then as we was engaging with other neighborhood issues, you know, something erupted again. But, you know, it take a lot of work, you know, to monitor these teens and young adults. And then to the last one, as far as my wish, I just wish that I could have the support to do what I really would like to do in Columbus, because this is my home away from home. You know, I've been here, I've been out 6 years. I live here. You know, I go home and visit my family. I don't have no family here, but I'm just being obedient to God's will. You know, I can't make up for my past for what I've done here, but I can just do what I can do now by paying it forward.
First of all, God bless you.
And God bless you.
And thank God is with you as you're doing this. Do you find that a lot of the gang members are missing one parent or the other?
Yeah, so like, this is the, when I got started, it was the early 90s. And that's when the crack epidemic really hit hard, late 80s, early 90s. So in that era, you had a lot of deaths of the fathers, strung out on drugs or in prison. And then the moms, they got strung out on drugs, and then they chasing the next drug dealer, and then the grandparents is raising the kids, and the grandparents can't handle the kids, and so the kids is just practically raising themselves. So now that kid got similarities to the next kid in their neighborhood, and now they forming these gangs or cliques. And so I'm not against gangs, I'm against violence, because some of these gangs are their family because they don't have the traditional family that we know that we've grown up on. And you know, they be together every day, they play, they go to school, they help feed each other, so that's they clique. But it's the violence that I'm against. But it's yeah, some of these parents are single parents. But it come from that era of the early 90s and mid 90s, which like mine. My daughters was raised by a single parent because I did 7 years incarceration state in Ohio and then 6 years and 10 months fair time. So they're a result of that as well.
Hey, Thell, thanks for being here, of course. Do you have a relationship with the City of Columbus and the city schools in any way to do the work that you're doing?
With Kashmir Publications, we have a relationship with the school. So I have done book curriculums with 2 book curriculums with Champion Middle School. I did 3 book curriculums with Magic Johnson Bridgescape, workshops with life skills Youth Build, East High School, and motivational speaking at Afrocentric High School. And then as far as the city, there's nothing there yet, but maybe something in the future, I don't know.
Yeah, Thell, thank you for being here. It seems to me that you're into a numbers game. And I'm not talking about jobs for these people. I'm not talking about mentors for these people. I'm talking about your own funding. Where do you get your funding from, and how many people do you have working in your organization?
Funding, we got like foundations that see the value in our mission and vision. So like Pollination Project in California, Columbus Medical Youth Foundation, and then donors. So that's what we haven't gotten no big funding yet. So we got volunteers, and then we just have me that's really being consistent with it, but we have like 3 or 4 volunteers. So we don't have no big funding to really be out there like answering alerts from Channel 4, 6, and 10 when it's a homicide.
I was just thinking about Homeboy Industries in LA, and we've had the pleasure of hearing of a priest, a Catholic priest, who set this up in Los Angeles and works with the people coming out of the prisons. He's got restaurants for the women who come out of the prisons. He has things in his own organization that work with the youth on removal of tattoos and a lot of other things. And it seems like the corporations in LA are supporting him. So I'm just wondering if you can get some corporate sponsors in Columbus, especially those in the Linden area and in the west side where some of the crime is occurring, to support you in some kind of a funding mechanism, okay?
Okay.
Maurice Claret talked to a group of bankers one time, and he had said he was a thug, and that was like a movie that was playing in his head, and he couldn't erase it. How much do you think, because of the movies, I guess in a way, that's playing in a lot of these youth's heads, that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for them?
It's a reality because you have suburban kids that come into the inner city to experience the thug life. So society has made the thug life acceptable now, to where as though the bad guys is getting more attention than the regular people. And so now you got the regular people that want to go and live that thug life because it's not enough strong regular people making a stance denouncing that lifestyle. And so when I go in the community, and then the hand select the ones that are with this agency, go into the community, we go in there strong, not weak, strong. And it's opposition because those shooters and killers don't like us going in their community, softening up those people that we're trying to help that they got on the front lines. But we strong, and we doing God's will. So we're not scared of them. We just take it one day at a time, one youth at a time. I didn't holler at bankers, some of the powers to be in Columbus, but they don't see the value. But I just have to continue to do what we can do with what God has provided, So that's why we welcome any support for the agency.
Most of the people you deal with, I presume, are totally involved in drugs and alcohol, some form of substance abuse.
Some, yeah, some.
What do you do with them in terms of helping them get off of it?
Refer them to somebody because I wasn't a drug addict, so that's not my lane. So I was on a violent path and selling drugs. So people that's on drugs, those ones that are popping pills and stuff like that, we refer them to agencies that can help them because that's not my lane. I wasn't a drug addict.
Okay, now comes the full confession. I'm board chairman of an organization called Hope Through Housing. And the fact is that my youngest son was literally on the streets in Orlando, Florida. We got him into a program in Durham, North Carolina called TROSA, and refers to substance abusers, 2-year program. And he then returned here and has started a 2-year program here. the short-term programs do not work. They have a success rate of less than 10%, whereas the longer programs, doesn't sound great, 39, 40%, but it's a lot better than the short-term programs. So if you do referrals, look up Hope Through Housing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Like everybody else, we really appreciate your coming today and sharing your story. And we're all saying thank God, and you're saying thank God. Thank your aunt for just supporting you through all that. I mean, if you hadn't had her, I think it would be really tough to turn around. So I'm really glad that she kept that relationship going for you and mentored you. I wanted to ask if you do have a positive, some kind of active relationship with the police. Is there something you can do for your organization to partner with the police to help the understanding, I guess, with everybody?
So my aunt was there for me my 7-year bid, and then my mom was there for me my 6 years and 10-month bid, because that's when I turned my life over to God. So God allowed me and my mom back together to where though we have a tight bond now. So I just wanted to clear that up. And then as far as a relationship with the police, no, we don't have a relationship with the police. It was just a video posted that's going around right now that I believe it happened September 1st, where the police showed excessive force in a store on Jaquetta, that's called Jaquetta on Fairwood and Livingston. 8 police officers beating this African-American male up. And so you have the police officers that you see on TV that are trained to speak a certain way, and then I have the privilege to see these police officers in the community and see them how they talk to these youth every day. And when I'm dressed down, they look at me like I'm a regular person. And so when I'm engaging with some youth and they come up and trying to bully them and, you know, accuse them and all of this, that, and the third, and I just smile and whip out who I am, and these youth ain't doing anything. So you see one side, well, not you per se, but society sees one side of how the police operate behind the camera, but then we get to see the real deal, how they really engage with them. And some of them might be good, but it's the bad ones that are really making it bad for them. And Columbus is brewing right now with a lot of hatred between the community and the police because of the excessive force that's going on. And so they know who we are, some of them do, and we respect them. We have the utmost respect for the police, but as far as working with them, we can't cross that line, because when we enter the community, these teens and young adults are not allowing us in the community because of who we once were. They're allowing us in the community because they know that we mean them good and we're trying to help them. And when them lines are crossed, we won't make it out the community. You know, it's other agencies that do that, work with the police. And if that's what they choose to do, that's on them. But I will not put myself at risk or the people that's with this agency at risk and deceive the youth. I'm not going to do that. I can't do it.
We're just about out of time. Just one last quick question, and that is, we've had some discussion around fundraising, how you're supporting your activities, and I know you said you can always use more. You do have a fundraiser coming up, I think, or an event coming up right here at the Boathouse, is that right?
Yes. We're having our 4th annual fundraiser here at the Boathouse, November 12th, 2017, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And or if you want to learn more about how you can support me, you can talk to me, you know, afterwards. But yes, we are having our fundraiser in November.
Okay, thank you, Thell. If you would, please join me in thanking Thell for the wonderful work he's doing. And we really appreciate the honesty in sharing your story. As Thell mentioned, for anyone that's interested in the organization, how you can help, or Thell's books, I have one of them here. It's called 7-Year Bid. I'm reading it now. It's really interesting. I have trouble putting it down. But they're available. He has 3 books on the Thug is a Dud website or on Amazon. And as
Cashmere Publication.
Cashmere Publications is where the books would be available. Sorry, you told me that.
On Amazon.
And Amazon. And that will be around, as he mentioned, after the meeting for those who want to have further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. No problem.
You're now adjourned.